Hi, I'm back again. I realize I won't be able to have time tomorrow to do any reading, so I'm going to do a short chapter here and add it to the other one, chapter 4. This is chapter 5. It's very short. We left off where Jimmy had landed the tank. He'd flown it all the way from Washington to Santa Monica, California, and he'd landed outside his house, and no one was home. And we continued from there. He saw a piece of paper on the kitchen table with a flight number and time scribbled on it. He looked at his watch and realized they had probably left for the airport less than an hour ago. He quickly ran for the tank, slamming the front door behind him. The tank was now surrounded by neighborhood children and several adults. There were also 2 police cars pulling up with lights flashing. He quickly pushed his way through, jumped up into the tank, and took off skyward, leaving a bewildered crowd behind. As he looked down, he saw that the policemen were yelling their heads off into the car radio. Within a split second, Jimmy was at the airport. The tank landed outside the departure section at Terminal 7 and straddled 3 traffic lanes, thereby immediately snarling traffic. He jumped out and ran into the terminal. He quickly spotted his parents as they were about to go through security. Grabbing his parents' arms, he said, "Quick, come with me." By the time they got to the tank, horns were blaring with cars backed up a mile. Several police cars had surrounded the tank. Elbowing their way through, they all boarded the tank with Jimmy helping his mother up. "Good Lord," said his father. "I feel like I'm in the middle of a Twilight Zone episode. How did you get this tank and how are we going to move? You can't just run over people." Without answering immediately, Jimmy zoomed the tank straight up into the air and headed out over the ocean. "Dad," he said rather breathlessly, "I can fly cars, trucks, tanks, you name it. I escaped from the Pentagon because they wanted to take my magic tennis shoes." Just then, Jimmy's cell phone rang. "Hello, hello," he yelled into it, while at the same time clicking on the speaker button. "Jimmy, where are you?" said Billy's voice. "Wait, I'll pick you up," answered Jimmy. "Are you home?" "Yes, I'm watching the news. They said you had stolen a tank from the Pentagon, flown it across the country, and landed it at Los Angeles Airport. Boy, are you in trouble." "Would you like a ride, Billy?" "Oh, yeah." "Well, get outside in the street. I'll pick you up in a jiffy." Meanwhile, Jimmy's parents did not exactly remain silent. In fact, they were getting quite frantic. "Jimmy Burton," his mother said, "what has gotten into you? You used to be so well behaved. Now look at you, flying army tanks around the country." Realizing how silly that sounded, she said weakly, "And you're going to get us in trouble, too." "Is this the way we raised you?" his father said loudly. "Now get this tank, down on the ground immediately." "Okay, Dad," Jimmy said as he landed the tank at Billy's house. He snapped open the hatch and Billy was already up there waiting to jump in. When he was safely inside, Jimmy clanged the hatch shut and zoomed off again. His parents just looked at each other, shaking their heads, as if thinking, "What are we going to do with this boy?" Jimmy's father was about to reprimand his son again and tell him to get the tank on the ground when the tank's radio crackled. "We have you in our sights and will shoot you down if you don't land immediately. Turn back and land in the park next to the boat docks at Marina del Rey." Jimmy opened the hatch and stood up and looked behind him. There was an Air Force jet on either side of his tank, slightly in the rear. He quickly closed the hatch and tilted the tank side to side to indicate he understood. Then immediately concentrated on going fast and was 10 miles away before the jet pilots realized he was gone. "Good Lord," said Billy, "no wonder the Pentagon wants you. They could fight air battles in tanks instead of planes, and they could never be shot down, they'd be so fast." "You know," Jimmy replied, "we'd better get back to the Pentagon. I've had my fun. It's no use fighting this anymore. I guess the bottom line is our country really does need this technology, and eventually the American people will benefit from it. At least I hope so. Jimmy, I think you've grown up, his father said. I'm proud of you. His mother gave him a kiss on the cheek. Okay, I'll begin chapter 6, because that was a short chapter, and then we'll reread that part on the next episode. Feel like a TV program or something. Chapter 6, A Reluctant Return to Washington. When the tank landed back at the Pentagon, they were met by a very displeased group of military people. Major Flynn was the first to greet Jimmy. "Stealing government property is a very serious offense, young man," he said. But even though the Major wore a very grave expression on his face, he couldn't conceal the twinkle in his eyes as he spoke. Jimmy and his family, including Billy of course, were escorted into the very same conference room, but this time with just the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a female secretary, and Major Flynn. "I am not going to dwell on your transgressions, Jimmy," said the general. "After all, you did come back, but I never want to see you pull anything like that again. Do you understand?" "I won't, sir," replied Jimmy. "Well, I do understand your motivations," continued the general, "but—" "Excuse me, sir," interrupted the secretary. "The president is on the line." Okay, we'll end it there. Well, it goes on. The general frowned as he picked up the phone. "Yes, sir, Mr. President. He's right here with his friend and family right now." "Of course, sir. We'll try that. Then send them over immediately afterwards." Okay.